Hi guys, it's your professor here, and I am going to teach you here the parts of an essay. If you happen to hear interesting sounds in the background, I'm actually in the family room of my home, and my sister and my mom and the dog and our parrot are in the background. So enjoy the sounds. I'll try to make it as quick as possible here. So for this particular lesson, what you're going to need is to know, or what you'll learn is the five paragraph essay structure. It's a very, very basic structure. Um, and most essays deal with this type of structure. Um, and for the essays that we will be writing for the semester, most of them, you'll be able to use the five paragraph structure for just about all of them. Um, then you'll know the parts of the essay, their actual parts of an essay, yes, their actual names, so I'll teach you what those are, and what and where everything goes. It's almost like putting a puzzle piece together. So, some things that you'll need for this lesson, obviously, you'll need paper and pen to take notes. This is another reminder that the modules for this class close after a week and they do not reopen. So, once you see this, I would recommend taking notes and trying to understand and ask questions because once the module closes, it won't reopen. You're going to need your book Writing Today because there's a couple of page numbers in this presentation where I've taken the information from those pages. So if you wanted to go back and refer to something or read something more in depth, you can. And of course, you'll need headphones to listen to this particular lesson. So, how does this essay situation start? So, here's some basic information. Essays, for the most part, are five paragraphs. Sometimes they're longer, sometimes they're shorter. It depends on the type of essay that you're writing. But for just the purposes of this lesson, just know that this is a five paragraph structure, which means it has an introductory paragraph, three body paragraphs, and a conclusion. Um, the, the ones that are longer or shorter have a variation of this structure. So learning what this structure is will help you with those essays as well. So this is actually the default. You know how everything has a neutral? This is the neutral to essay writing. And again, this changes depending on the type of essay that you're writing. So let's talk about the easiest part, which is the introduction. The introduction part is super easy because it's the first, but it's also the hardest to write. So usually I tell students to write the introductory paragraph last. Um, Most especially if you're writing it in a first draft, because sometimes you don't know what you're writing about until you're done writing. So that's why I usually say write the introduction last. But this is the first thing you edit. So, introduction, write it last, but edit it first. So, it's of course the first thing that's being read by an audience, so you want to make that as beautiful and pristine as possible. It has three parts it has the hook, the background information, and the thesis. And it goes in this particular order. Don't do the thesis first because it's wrong. Don't start off with background information because you'll lose the reader instantly. And don't leave your hook for the middle because then you would have already lost an audience. So you're going to want the hook, the background information, and the thesis in that order. And the introductory paragraph is not long. It is not a full paragraph or a full page. It's actually about 5 to 6 sentences at the most. So you've probably heard about hook, or you're probably wondering what a hook is. And it's literally hooking the reader, and that's where it gets its name from. It hooks the reader to their work. And there's a couple of different types. I'm going to focus on three types of hooks: the rhetorical question, a quote, and an interesting fact or surprising fact. And this is what is at the beginning of the essay, the beginning of the introductory paragraph. So this is how you reel in your reader. And here's a couple of examples of the hook. So if you're going to do a question, rhetorical question type of hook, it's the first sentence, right? So let's say that you're writing an essay about the first day of college and you're wanting to use a hook, a question, a rhetorical question hook. A possible way of doing it would be writing, have you ever woken up to realize that today was the first day of the rest of your life? So it's a rhetorical question, which means you're not expecting an answer back. You're just posing the question to frame what you're about to say. And so that's a good way to start. Another good way to start is a quote. So if you've ever seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off, it's kind of one of my favorite movies. And I use a quote from Ferris Bueller. So a quote intro could go something like this, or a quote hook could go something like this. As Ferris Bueller said in that movie, life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. However, I didn't have time to look around. I was already late for my first day of college. See how that works? Then you have an interesting fact. So, one of the interesting facts is that Lone Star College Kingwood has more than 12,000 students that attend every semester. We're actually inching over 13,000 actually. So, that's an interesting fact you can start with. So, a possible sentence could be more than 12,000 students began classes at Lone Star College Kingwood on Monday. I was one of them. So I see how that interesting fact kind of helps frame your the beginning part of your essay. You kind of know exactly what's going to be talked about, or at least what the context of it is. So let's go ahead and talk about background information as the background sounds of this video become more pronounced as my sister talks about the dog. So let's talk about background information. So background information is pretty much putting context to what's going to be in the um, in the essay. It's limited information. It's just enough for the reader to know what's going on. And it's really only a couple of sentences. So you don't want to start with the beginning. And in the beginning, I was born in 1981. No, you really want to start with just enough information to get the reader rolling. You're going to have some time to talk about context or about the background information a little bit deeper in your essay, but you really want to give them just a taste of what they're in for. So remember, the intro paragraph is only 5 to 6 sentences, so you only have so much time and space to talk about the background. But context is everything. Without context, the reader doesn't know what's going on. All right, so let's talk about the thesis here. The thesis is something that students usually have an issue or a problem with. And for the most part, it can be challenging, but it's challenging when you don't know what you're about to write, which is another reason why I say write the rest of the essay first and leave the introductory paragraph for later. Because part of the introductory paragraph is the thesis. So the thesis, of course, goes in the introductory paragraph, but it goes as the last sentence of that paragraph. It's not at the beginning, it's not in the middle, it's at the end. It's also a promise to the reader that you're going to talk about or write about a certain topic and stick with it throughout the entire essay. For example, if you're writing about cars and you're writing about the Toyota Tundra, and then in the middle of paragraph 3, you start talking about the Corolla and you end up talking about the Corolla, you've literally just broken a promise to your reader. Continue talking about the Tundra. Leave the Corollas alone. Now, a thesis also outlines the order of your topic and tells the reader the essay structure. So here's an example that I wrote. I like writing about candy because candy, pretty much, most people like candy. Different types of candy, but they do enjoy candy. And here's an example of a thesis statement about gummy candies. So if you're going to say gummy candies are delicious because they are sweet and come in many flavors and are made in different shapes, don't talk about the shapes in the first body paragraph. You listed sweet first, so write about sweet first. Then write about flavors, and then finally shapes. So the order that you're going to talk about things, or the order is the order that your body paragraphs are going to go. And one last thing about the thesis that people forget about. Thesis, an actual for real thesis, is an opinion. It's not a fact. If it's not arguable, meaning that someone could disagree with you, it's not a thesis. You're just stating a fact. So remember that a thesis is an opinion, and it's your opinion. Now let's move on to the body paragraphs. The body paragraphs are going to be the meat and potatoes of your essays here. It starts with a topic sentence. and it has transitions. It moves from one thought to another. Here's some examples of some transitional words, and later on in this presentation, we'll talk about transitional phrases here that could be helpful. So, example: however, therefore, secondly, thirdly, first. Those are good transition words. There's usually three body paragraphs, but again, depending on the essay that you write, you could have only two big body paragraphs, or you can have several body paragraphs. And that usually happens, at least the ones with several body paragraphs, usually happens with the research essay. You want to have more than three paragraphs usually. Like the introductory paragraph has 5 to 6 sentences as a pretty good length for that paragraph, there's not really a good length for body paragraphs. It really is what you're going to talk about and being able to explain what you talk about. I can't say that there is a good length for it being too short. 4 sentences in a body paragraph is way too short. Now, 100 sentences in a body paragraph is way too long. So, somewhere between 4 sentences and 100 is actually a pretty good length. Here's an excellent figure here on how a body paragraph looks like. And this is something that I actually got from your book here. So this wonderful shape of a paragraph, of a body paragraph, or the anatomy of a body paragraph, shows that there is a topic sentence in the body paragraph, which has a transitional word. There's supportive sentences, and then there's a point sentence. And you're probably wondering what all these types of sentences are. So let's take a deeper dive. A topic sentence, which you've probably heard of before in other English classes, announces what the subject of the paragraph is. It makes a statement or a claim that the rest of the paragraph will support and prove. The topic sentence is always, always, always going to be the first sentence of the body paragraph. Now, that topic sentence is going to have transition or transitional phrases, and it does exactly what the name implies. It really transitions between one paragraph to another. You don't want your paragraphs to just jolt start. You want to ease your reader in from one paragraph to another, like swinging from one vine to another. So the transitions appear at the beginning of the body paragraph, and especially in the topic sentence, which is the first sentence of the paragraph. It can help change direction if you need to. Say, if you're going to start talking about one aspect of something, but go into another area. And that usually is helpful for, say, like an argument essay. Yeah, your transition can be a word or a phrase. And I'm about to show you a couple of examples of those things. Now, here's some examples of transitional phrases. On page 384 of your book, you have a lot more. There's more phrases on the book than I had space in a PowerPoint slide. But I just wanted to give you a sense that these are wonderful phrases that you can use at the beginning of your topic sentence. Okay, so let's look at what support sentences are and what they do. So support sentences are right after topic sentences. That's where you put them, and they make up the most uh, part of the body paragraph, which is why I have a big house here as a visual. They are the big bulk of it. You know, if your topic sentence is the roof, then your support sentences is the bit or the beams that hold up the topic sentence. So it backs up what the topic sentence is saying, and there's some things that can be done in a support sentence to back up the topic sentence. So you could use examples, you can add details, you can have facts, definitions, and descriptions. And now here's something that's probably a little bit new. You've probably not heard of the name of this type of sentence, but it's called a point sentence, and it actually comes at the end of the paragraph. In fact, it's the last sentence of a paragraph. It states, restates, or amplifies the paragraph's main point at the end of the paragraph. So It helps you in longer paragraphs if you want to reinforce a point. It also helps you restate the topic sentence. So it's the conclusion part of the paragraph. That's actually has a name. It's called the point sentence. And then you have the last paragraph in your essay, which is the conclusion paragraph. And most students have problems writing the conclusion paragraph. And I think one thing is because we stress so much about the intro paragraph and the body paragraphs and the structures of the body paragraph that pretty much all students know is that an essay should end and you're probably going to restate your thesis, and that's it. So I wanted to give you guys some clear points of the conclusion paragraph and what it does. So it definitely tells you that we're done, that the paragraph is done. And there's some actual phrases. Just like there's transitional phrases that kind of ease the reader from one paragraph to another, there are conclusional phrases or transitional phrases for conclusion paragraphs that eases the reader into the conclusion paragraph. Obviously, you're going to restate the main point or the thesis. You're going to add some emphasis to it. You're literally going to say what you just told us again in a more concise form, in a very short form. Is the conclusion paragraph is actually shorter than your introductory paragraph. You're going to call your readers to action if there needs to be a call to action. And a call to action, what that means is that you're asking your readers to do an action, write a letter to their congressman, only shop for organic vegetables, um, do something. So there is an action um, that is asked to be done. So that's what a call for action is. And another thing that could be done in a conclusion is a look to the future. So both of these, the call to action and the look to the future, could be used in, say, like a proposal essay or an argumentative essay. It doesn't work so well, at least the call to action doesn't work so well in the memoir essay. Um, but the look to the future does, since the memoir essay deals with um, deals with lessons learned from a life experience, as you will soon find out. And so here we go, the conclusion signal phrases that tells your readers that the conclusion is here and we're just about to finish and wrap it up. So this is a long list. Of course, there's more in your book as well, but this is just a snippet. And here we are. We're at the end of our lesson. So, what did you learn in this lesson? Well, you've learned the basic parts of an essay. Um, and remember that these parts can change or be slightly different or even be altered depending on the type of essay. You've learned transitional phrases to move from one paragraph to another and even to move from the essay into the conclusion. You understood and know what the purpose of a thesis is, and essentially how all these new pieces that you've learned work together.